technology and troops against Putin. The US is preparing a strike coalition for Ukraine. Air defense, intelligence, peacekeeper support, coordination with the European coalition of the willing. And this is just the beginning. Trump is personally overseeing the process.
The United States of America will make its strategic contribution to security guarantees for Ukraine. This was reported to the Financial Times by high-ranking European officials.
Financial Times. The US has promised Europe support for peacekeepers in Ukraine with air cover and intelligence.
It is reported that Washington is ready to support the presence of European allies in Ukraine with intelligence information and protection of Ukrainian airspace.
Europe is planning to provide Ukraine with significant security guarantees, and they have to do it because they are right there. We will be involved as a backup resource. We are going to help them.
It is very important that the US has realized that without guarantees, Ukraine will not agree to implement not just some of Putin's wishes, but won't even sit down at the table to discuss them. Because, well, excuse me, to give up the Donetsk region, not even the occupied cities. For what purpose?
The US's willingness to contribute is a very important signal for Europe. Over the past few months, leaders of European countries have declared their readiness to participate in a peacekeeping mission on the ground and in the air, with the condition of mandatory support from Washington.
Europe must play its part, and I am ready to consider the possibility of deploying British forces on the ground alongside others. But there must be US support, because US security guarantees are the only way to effectively deter Russia from attacking Ukraine again.
At the moment, the discussion is about the White House providing assistance with logistics, command and control of troops, intelligence and surveillance, all the areas in which the potential European continent is most dependent on the US.
In fact, what is being discussed is that the United States has given the green light to European countries for a possible peacekeeping operation scenario on the territory of Ukraine. And let me remind you, more than 10 countries have declared their readiness to provide their own military personnel for a peacekeeping operation on Ukrainian territory.
It is also reported that there will be support with military equipment, particularly air defense systems, which will provide cover for European forces in Ukraine.
The military component will be accompanied by the United States of America. In other words, the mission will be staffed by the US. Well, of course, at the expense of the Europeans. But that's already quite a lot because you have to staff it from somewhere. Where do you get it from if Europe doesn't have enough of its own military production? In order to do this as quickly as possible and to implement those very security guarantees, the United States is essentially the only country available.
In addition, even after the end of hostilities, Washington will provide its own aircraft and ground-based radars, which will help establish an air shield over Ukraine.
This already involves the use of the aviation component, which will nullify the ability of the Russian occupation army to use the aerospace forces of the occupying country when launching missile and bomb strikes both on logistics infrastructure and accordingly on peaceful Ukrainian cities.
The issue of reliable security guarantees is key for Ukraine. Without American support, there can be no talk of any reliability at all. In addition to the European peacekeeping contingent, the Russian aggressor will have to reckon with American military equipment, aviation, and intelligence information.
A gathering of dictators. Putin and Kim Jong Un are rushing to see Xi. Trump is in the background. What is behind such haste? World shock, Hungary against the EU. Germany warns Ukraine will not surrender to Putin. Watch all the details right now.
Putin is heading to a place where he definitely won't be arrested. The Kremlin dictator will travel to China for a full 4 days, where an entertainment program awaits him together with North Korean leader Kim Jong Un.
The meeting between Putin, Xi, and Kim Jong Un is a story of confrontation with the West and the coalition that Kiev has formed around the process of seeking a peaceful resolution or freezing the war. It's no secret. In the West, Russia is now often called a vassal of China, and the continuation of the war is generally considered to be in China's interests. That's why Putin is going to his master, his senior comrade, to seek support, especially against the backdrop of major economic problems.
It will all begin with the Shanghai Cooperation Organization Summit from August 31 to September 1, where leaders of more than 20 countries have been invited. And of course, there will be a grand parade which will take place on September 3rd. During the parade, China plans to demonstrate solidarity with Russia and North Korea.
At this point, the survival of the Russian regime directly depends on both economic support military cooperation, and the kind of political leverage that China extends to the Russian Federation. It is now abundantly clear that the entire world as a whole has undeniably entered a kind of protracted Cold War 2.0, in which the two primary and most influential superpowers, namely China and the United States, are increasingly confronting each other across various significant and diverse battlefields.
But here's what's interesting. Putin will meet with Xi even before Trump does. Although the US president has stated that he is considering a trip to China itself, which may take place this year or at the beginning of 2026, the purpose of the visit is likely to continue negotiations on a trade agreement.
At this point, it is not advantageous for Xi to meet with Trump. And such a demonstrative refusal to hold this kind of meeting is yet another blow to the foundation of the US as the main geopolitical player and to America's status as the world's policeman. Therefore, I wouldn't jump ahead regarding a personal meeting between Xi and Trump just yet, because it seems that China will sabotage such an initiative from the American president and use it to increase its own geopolitical gains.
Meanwhile, there is clearly a labor shortage in Russia. Ukraine's Foreign Intelligence Service reports that the Kremlin is recruiting women from poor countries to work at its Shahed assembly plants, and they are doing this through deceitful means.
In South Africa, brick structures were used for recruitment. The Ministry of Women's Affairs has called on young people to remain vigilant. The authorities have launched an investigation into the activities of Russian companies.
Orban is rebelling. Hungary is trying to challenge in court the European Union's decision to use income from frozen Russian assets to finance aid to Ukraine. Back in March 2025, the decision was made bypassing Budapest's opinion.
From a legal standpoint, Hungary can indeed use the argument that the decision was made without their participation, given the legal norms of the European Union. But there is also a political aspect which is more important in this matter. At present, there are indeed quite active discussions taking place in the heart of Europe about reformatting or reforming the decision-making process. It is now obvious to everyone that Hungary and Slovakia are directly playing into Russia's hands.
On the night of August 28th, Russia launched another attack on Kyiv using drones and missiles. There are reports of casualties and fatalities.
We are awaiting China's response to what is happening. China has repeatedly called for the war not to be expanded and for a ceasefire. This is not happening because of Russia. We are awaiting a response from Hungary. The death of children should evoke far stronger emotions than anything else. We expect a response from everyone in the world who has called for peace, but now remains mostly silent instead of taking a principled stand.
But the one who truly understands Russia's intentions is the German Chancellor, Friedrich Merz. He stated that Germany does not want Ukraine to capitulate, as that would only give Russia time to prepare for its next act of aggression.
The Kremlin is trapped. Russia's summer offensive has failed. Pokrovsk is holding strong, while the north and south are devouring the occupiers. Putin has lost again. In 3 months, Russia has suffered strategic defeats. The objectives of the offensive have been thwarted. Watch all the explosive details right now.
This video shows soldiers from the 225th Assault Battalion of the Ukrainian Armed Forces. They are clearing the settlement of Voronezh in the Dnipropetrovsk region. With the help of a Bradley, Ukrainian fighters managed to stop the occupiers' breakthrough in this direction. Unfortunately, such actions by the Ukrainian Armed Forces are not always successful. According to the Deep State resource, the Russians have managed for the first time to occupy 2 villages in the Dnipropetrovsk region, Zaporizhzhye and Novory-Horivka. In recent months, Putin's invaders have been using infiltration tactics with small groups almost along the entire front line. This tactic yields only very minor successes.
It's infiltration by small infantry groups, just 2 or 3 people at a time. But there are a lot of these groups. Their task is not so much to engage in battle and break through, but rather to bypass our strongholds of resistance, so to speak, right? That is our posts, our strong points, and so on. They take advantage of the fact that the front line is sparse, meaning there is no continuous line of defense. It's not a breakthrough, it's more like infiltration, seeping through, leaking, and so on. This is the kind of tactic they will obviously continue to use. Why? Because in general, the shortage of infantry is unfortunately still quite relevant on our side.
As before, the hottest direction remains Pokrovsk. Every day, at least a quarter of all enemy attacks are concentrated in this direction. The Kremlin wants to capture the entire Donbass at any cost.
They want to reach the administrative borders of Donetsk region, to reach the junction of three regions, Donetsk, Zaporizhzhia, and Dnipropetrovsk. This is when we're talking about the southern Donetsk direction.
They want to push into the Dnipropetrovsk region in order to seize more territory and have a stronger position in negotiations.
Special attention was also given to the Pokrovsk direction at a meeting with the President of Ukraine, which was attended by the Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, Oleksandr Syrsky.
Our main focus right now is primarily on the Pokrovsk, Dobropilya, Novopavlivka, Kupiansk, as well as the Zaporizhzhia directions. During the meeting, they discussed the need for additional support for units in these and other important sectors of the front. There are positive trends in the border areas of Sumy and Kharkiv regions. Here, the decisive factor is the active operations of the 225th Assault Regiment, the 71st Jaeger Brigade, and Special Operations Forces units.
In the Kursk direction, a series of strikes by Ukrainian aviation managed to destroy an entire unit. The air bombs destroyed the unit's headquarters and command posts, the personnel base, the electronic warfare communications crew, and the manpads crew. In this direction, the Russian army has also achieved no success. Most of the objectives that the Kremlin set for the campaign from April to August 2025 have not been achieved. In fact, Russia's summer offensive has failed, and there is a certain fatigue among Russians. This is reported by Bild. Over the entire summer, Russia captured only 1/800 square kilometers. This is about 0.3% of Ukrainian territory.
In the Donetsk region, Russian troops unsuccessfully tried to take Pokrovsk. Despite a breakthrough in the city center in August, within 3 weeks all Russian units were either destroyed or captured. In the northern direction, Vladimir Putin's plans to create a security belt in the Chernihiv, Sumy, and Kharkiv regions also failed. Less than 70 kilometers of territory along the border came under Russian control. In the south, in the Kherson and Zaporizhzhia regions, the front remained stable, and the Kremlin was effectively forced to abandon its offensive plans.
The situation at the front is currently stable. President Volodymyr Zelensky is ready to discuss a ceasefire, but not a capitulation as Putin did.
Every voice matters. Join our community, support independent journalism, and help us bring you the truth from Ukraine. Become a member of Ukraine today. Join us now.